Hi, welcome to your employment here at Cedar Village. I'm your host, Rabbi Drew Kaplan, Director of Pastoral Care here. I hope this video is helpful for you in serving the demographic of the Jewish population here at Cedar Village. Cedar Village opened in March 1997, the result of a merger between Cincinnati's two Jewish senior living facilities. And even though it no longer remains under Jewish auspices, it still remains as the option of choice for those looking to find a Jewish community. Many residents of Cedar Village follow Jewish cultural traditions and practice. Valuing our elders and providing for their needs is a key element in Jewish life, as well as the hallmark of Cedar Village. We honor Cedar Village's history and heritage by celebrating and observing Jewish holidays and recognizing the holiness of the Sabbath. Jewish residents have chosen Cedar Village as their home because of many reasons, including the vast extent of religious and cultural services and programs, spiritual guidance, and pastoral care. Cedar Village has appropriate members of the clergy on staff to provide religious, cultural services, pastoral care, and education. Remaining faithful to its historic past, Cedar Village maintains two sanctuaries, a Reformed temple and an Orthodox synagogue. Religious services in both sanctuaries take place on Sabbath and holidays. So here we are located in the temple, which is where the Reform and Conservative, the more liberal forms of Judaism, do their prayer services. Now, Cincinnati is the home of Reformed Judaism in not only North America, but really the world. And as such, many of the Jews here affiliate with the Reformed Jewish practice. And we also have the synagogue, which is where more Orthodox observance takes place, at least liturgically, here in the building. Some common Jewish terms you might hear here around Cedar Village regarding clergy is one, I'm Rabbi Drew Kaplan. You might ask yourself, what is a rabbi? Well, a rabbi is a clergy who is trained in Jewish practice, texts, very text heavy, whereas someone like a cantor, such as my predecessor, Cantor Katsu, is an expert in liturgy and the history of Jewish prayer. So one of the things that you may see here in either the temple or the synagogue is something called a talit, which is a prayer shawl, which is right here, and anytime you pop by, there will be more than a dozen in each of both the synagogue and the temple, and it's people either wear it like this, which is almost like a serape, and some people wear it more like a little scarf, and so that is a talit. We also have a kippah or yarmulke, which whenever you see me and many rabbis, even just walking around outside of a prayer service, will be wearing. So I've got one on. And it's also something that people commonly wear during prayer services. One thing that comes up in at least once a year for 8 days is the holiday of Hanukkah. And for that, it is celebrated with this menorah, which has 9 different branches in which people can place either oil, they can put in wax candles. Although here at Cedar Village, since we're not really keen on live fires, you may see people with electric lights for their menorahs. One piece we have here at Cedar Village is this little kriya ribbon, a little black ribbon. It's called a kriya ribbon because what people do is, in Hebrew, it's called kriya. So we rip it upon the death of a resident, and we actually affix it to their name badge outside of their room for 7 days following their passing. One thing that you may see around is a shofar. It's a ram's horn in which it is blown on the holiday of Rosh Hashanah and actually at the departure of Yom Kippur, and it has a really fascinating sound, which is it is blasted many times on the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, and as I mentioned, at the departure of Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. One thing you may notice strewn throughout the building on many of the doorposts are these little rectangular boxes. And you wonder to yourself, what are those strange little boxes? Well, inside of them are little scrolls that include verses from Deuteronomy chapter 6 and 11, in which the Jews, the Israelites, are commanded to place the words of the 5 books of Moses on their doorposts to help remind the Jews, the Israelites, about the various practices of our people. All Cedar Village residents are encouraged to participate in classes, discussion groups, and celebrations. Cedar Village clergy are available for pastoral care visits to people of all faiths. As well, clergy of all faiths are welcome to visit their congregants while they are residents of Cedar Village. What is the Jewish Sabbath? Also known as Shabbat or Shabbos, the Sabbath is the Jewish day of rest and is the weekly occasion carved out for separating from our daily activities to focus on restfulness and community. In line with honoring the Jewish history and heritage of Cedar Village, certain aspects of observance are practiced in regards to the Sabbath as well as Jewish holidays. Observance of the Jewish Sabbath begins at sunset on Friday and ends an hour after sunset on Saturday. During this period, care is given to respect the sanctity of the Sabbath. Jewish holidays carry similar guidelines as the Sabbath. Out of observance to the Sabbath, the use of phones is discouraged in public areas, as well as music and television. However, television, radio, and music are permitted in resident lounges, which are located at the ends of each healthcare unit. Residents may do as they wish in their own rooms. Any necessary business should be conducted in a private manner. And just like the Sabbath, Jewish holidays take place beginning at sunset, about sundown, and go through the next night or two. And we actually are blessed with this wonderful collection of Keri Kamu pieces that go through all the major holidays. So we're going to start off here in the fall with Rosh Hashanah, which literally translates to head of the year. It's the Jewish New Year, usually taking place in September, where we blast the shofar and there's lots of fruits to be had. Apples and honey is a big piece about having a sweet new year, so it's a festive time in the fall. We then move on about a week later to Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement, which is also the most solemn. It's the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. It's a day of fasting and prayer. Next up, following on the heels, days later, is the holiday of Sukkot, either translated as huts or booths or tabernacles, and it's celebrated. We usually here at Cedar Village have 2 or 3 of these Sukkot, these huts on campus, and it's a festive time. That juxtaposition with Yom Kippur of somberness, and yet here it's full of festiveness. We move on the heels of Sukkot, really at the tail end is this wonderful celebration known as Simchat Torah or Simchas Torah. It's the rejoicing of the Torah. There's a lot of dancing, singing, and other festiveness. In December we have the holiday of Hanukkah. We have the menorah I mentioned earlier, and each night we light one more candle for each night until we get up to 8 candles lit. There's also oily foods, fried foods. It's not really good for one's belt, but it's definitely a fun time in the middle of the winter. Next up, it's called Tu B'Shvat. It's the 15th of the month of Shvat. It's the Jewish New Year for the trees. So here we celebrate trees and especially fruits from trees. Another joyous holiday is Purim. The celebration of Purim commemorates the events that take place in the biblical book of Esther. And there's, again, a lot of rejoicing, a lot of food, just really having a great time. Later on in the spring, we have Passover. In Hebrew, it's called Pesach. It commemorates the Jews, the Israelites departing from Egypt and making it all the way in the desert and really giving thanks to God that we were able to be, through the 10 plagues, able to make it out of Egypt. And we have, on the first couple of nights, we celebrate by having the Passover Cedar. And in this Passover Cedar, we recount the departure from Egypt. As part of the holiday, in commemorating this exodus from Egypt, is the avoidance of leavened foods, especially bread. So matzah, it's this like cracker-like bread, is consumed on this holiday, and we refrain from having any bread or other leavened products. Here is Yom Ha'atzmaut in Hebrew. It's Israeli Independence Day. You can see in this piece there's plenty of Israeli flags, and it is the celebration of birth of the state of Israel. Here we have a really fascinating picture of the celebration of Lag BaOmer. I'm not going to get into all the details of it, but people often celebrate it by shooting bows and arrows and lighting bonfires and having haircuts. It's a funny day, and I'm happy to talk to you more about it in person. Later on in the spring, and really leading up into the summer, is the holiday of Shavuot. It takes place 7 weeks after the beginning of Passover, and it celebrates, it's a harvest festival, and it, like other holidays, there's a certain aspect of joy and rejoicing. We also have a lot of dairy on this holiday to commemorate sort of the life-giving aspect of the reception of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. On this, one of the things that this holiday commemorates. Also, even though we don't have an artistic rendering of it, is Yom HaShoah, which is Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is the commemoration of this terrible time in the Jewish people's existence in which 6 million Jews were exterminated in Europe. Christmas and Easter programs for our Christian residents are celebrated at Cedar Village. Residents may decorate their own rooms as they choose. Many residents at Cedar Village follow traditional Jewish dietary practices, which is known as kosher or kashrut. These practices include the separation of meat and dairy food products, as well as the avoidance of pork and shellfish. Residents who observe keeping kosher have the ability of kosher meals. For all kosher meals, separate dishes, flatware, and glasses are maintained. Separate utensils for cooking, as well as cleaning, are also maintained in the kitchens. Care should always be taken not to mix the dairy and meat silverware and dishes, as well as the cooking utensils. Cedar Village kosher plates and silverware should not be used in residents' rooms who choose not to have kosher meals. If a resident prefers to eat meals from the Cedar Village kitchen in his or her own room, disposables are to be used. A 6-hour waiting period is maintained between consumption of meat products and then dairy products, and is applied to meat and dairy meals served to observant residents. However, if life-saving medications or food are required, the waiting period is not necessary. Nutritional supplements are served to residents based on medical need. For those residents who are eating from the kosher menu, every effort will be made to adhere to their religious needs. However, medical necessity and/or physician orders for the health and well-being of the resident will prevail. Non-kosher food is also available and includes pork products and shellfish products. These non-kosher foods and meals are available for residents and are prepared in a separate kitchen. Thank you for your attention to the information presented. And once again, welcome to the Cedar Village team. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask any member of the Cedar Village clergy.